Hey guys, so Bonnie's having a little bit of technical difficulties, so this is fun. Um, but I'm going to go ahead and at least try to get us started. Welcome to another special live episode of the Grounded in Simplicity podcast, where we are helping moms get back to basics and learn to find joy in being less busy. I am Danielle from the Rustic Elk, and will shortly be joined by my good friend Bonnie from the Not So Modern Housewife. And today we are wrapping up my Homestead Anywhere challenge and going to talk about some things that you can do to take action and start working on your homesteading dreams wherever you're at in life right now. So I will be honest, I had this all planned as a conversation with my friend. So, just kind of give me a minute. I will do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're joining us live, please go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give us permission to see your name. So if you comment, we know who is talking to us. And let me find my notes. Like I said, I was planning on doing this from a conversation standpoint, so bear with me. Okay, so first off, what can you do to start your homestead? A lot of people are waiting on that someday mentality. They have that someday mentality. They're waiting on, more land and more money or resources, knowledge, waiting on their kids to get out of school and move away, or their kids to grow up. The last 2 years have definitely shown us that we can't wait on someday. Grocery store shelves are definitely bare more often than not. So, we need that little bit of food security. So what can you do? You can, kind of start to let go of that consumerism mindset that has all been ingrained in all of us since, the beginning of life mostly. You can learn to kind of minimize and simplify your life. So, doing things like, letting go of all the excess in your life and kind of decluttering and letting go of, buying things that you really don't need. I actually have an entire blog post on this, 32 tips on becoming a minimalist. And basically it's just, it takes you through every area of your home so that you can, declutter and get rid of all that excess, because that clutter is time and money out of our lives. And it can be difficult to let go of it. But at the same time, it does bog you down. There have actually been studies on how much excess clutter bogs us down. So, learning to kind of let go of that and not keeping all that excess for, just in case or just in time or, whatever it may be, can really, really help you. It kind of helps you let go of the consumerism mindset and make it so that you're not spending so much time, picking up trinkets and decluttering, or, just like I said, it weighs you down. It takes time out of your life if you have all this excess. So you kind of have to learn to let go of those things and only keep things that you really love or really need. And I'm not what's her name? Marie Kondo. Is that her name? I'm not like her. I don't think that we should have no things or only things that bring us joy. There are definitely things that you need, especially leading this kind of lifestyle. But you can definitely learn to minimize and simplify. And just, we don't need 500 mugs. We only need a few. You might have company once in a while, but that doesn't mean that you need 500 mugs. So that's some tips on that blog post that's on the corner of your page that you could go, look at later. And hopefully that'll help you learn to minimize a little bit. And another thing that you can do to let go of that consumerism mindset is to turn off the TV, especially when we're talking about traditional cable and satellite subscriptions. They can be really... there's lots of commercials on them, so they can talk us into buying things or thinking that we need things that we really don't need. Kimber says we will have an empty house soon, and so hubby and I have been downsizing lots. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have an empty house, then it's easier. But even if you have kids, you should still, kind of learn to downsize. We don't need so much stuff. I mean, so many people have, you know, um, all of these storage units and things like that, and we don't need that much stuff. We really, 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 really don't. And like I said, it takes hours and time of your life in order to take care of all of this stuff that you really don't need. So turn off that TV. Like I said, especially subscription cable and satellite have a lot of commercials. A lot of streaming services don't, or the commercials that they have are to advertise other, episodes or programs that they have on the streaming service. So if you're going to watch TV, I recommend that you at least watch some streaming service that doesn't have tons and tons of advertisements for junk that we really don't need, because all of those advertisements are definitely geared toward making you want to go buy things. And they're things that you probably don't need. Like I said, there are lots of things, especially in homesteading, that we need, but we don't need 500 mugs. And we might need 500 mason jars, but we don't need a lot of stuff. So you kind of have to choose wisely and be very ruthless about what you choose to keep in your life and what you don't. And of course, the ever important, stay out of the stores. If you go in the store, you are definitely more likely to impulse buy something that you absolutely positively don't need, whether this be, some kind of convenience food or an actual, object. And like I said, you're trading hours of your life for all these objects that you have. So learning to let go of the consumerism mindset can be very, very hard. But as homesteaders or people who want to learn to homestead, we should be producing things and producers instead of so much consumers. It wasn't really that long ago that more and more people had a more productive mindset. We were actually, talked into having victory gardens and things like that as being patriotic and, doing your part and, being a producer instead of just constantly consuming resources that a lot of times aren't even renewable. Tara says, with us being in our fifth wheel now, I only brought one coffee cup and one water thermal, and we've downsized a lot over the years. Yes, it's so important to, like I said, learn to let go. We have all these preconceived notions about needing to have all of this excess stuff, and we don't. Of course, all these corporations want us to buy the excess stuff, and we get the excess stuff, and then it's not so great. One of my favorite books is Henry and the Great Society. You can actually find that book online for free as a PDF. And I can find it later maybe and put it in the comments. But if you haven't read it, I highly, highly recommend that you read it. It talks about a story of a man. He starts off as a farmer with his family. They live by oil light and candlelight, and they have a very, very simplistic life. They go to church on Sundays. They wash their clothes once a week and all of these things. And then technology comes in and the railroad runs through, and then there's a road right by their house. And then, they have a telephone that's constantly begging their attention. And then they have electricity, and his wife wants a washing machine, and all of these things that were supposed to make their lives convenient and less time consuming actually require more of their time. So when you look at it from the way that our ancestors lived, of course, everything was far more difficult. And there are lots and lots of, modern technologies that I'm very, very appreciative of. This is one of them. Of course, I wouldn't be talking to you if we weren't on the internet. But, we have to kind of take a step back and realize that a lot of those things that we are taught make our lives easier and make things more convenient and less time consuming actually require more out of our lives. But it requires more out of our lives from the standpoint of working a job 40 to 80 hours a week and being away from your family and your home and doing a specialized service that you're trading your hours for money so that you can pay for all the junk that you probably don't need. Yes, having the phone on all the time, Tara, is definitely very, very aggravating. Um, I always recommend people turn their phones off or at least put them in another room, let them charge in a different room while you go do something else. We don't need our phones all the time. Make yourself hard to get a hold of. Not only can this help you get things done and be more productive, but in all honesty, it helps you be less of a consumer and gets you away from that consumer mindset, because when we're constantly on our phones, we're usually scrolling Facebook or some other thing, and then we end up with a lot of advertisements that are trying to get us to buy the thing. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about how, even if you are in a apartment or you're in a rental and you can't have a big garden or whatever your situation is, that doesn't mean that you can't start working toward, a self-sufficient lifestyle and living your homesteading dream. So how can you do that? You can use this season of your life, wherever you're at, as a learning season. And remember, everything is just a season. Everything changes. People change all the time. Situations change all the time. Everything is constantly changing. So you have to learn how to use the seasons that you're in to, make your dreams move forward without having to be, on this big plot of land or have a big garden or, whatever it is that your dream is. So how can we make this a learning season? Well, we can learn how learn how to use locally grown produce and learn to can it. Even if you can't have a garden, you can teach yourself to can. And you can use, locally grown produce. You could even use produce that you found at the supermarket. That's one of the first things that I actually learned how to do as a homesteader, was learning how to can. And we did not have a very big garden at all because we lived on less than a third of an acre and it was in town. We couldn't have chickens or anything like that. It was against the municipal ordinances, but I could learn to can. So I used those, and things like that. And I got a canning book and I got some jars and I taught myself how to can. And I even taught myself how to pressure can. So, you can use that time that you're in to build up those skills right where you're at. Tara says that she's excited to get her garden going this year. Yes, definitely. I'm excited. It's supposed to be 70 degrees here tomorrow, and then we have snow in the forecast. So don't put your garden in too early. I know you're a little bit further south, but still, don't put it in too early. So, we can take the time to learn to can, learn to garden. Another thing that I taught myself to do when we lived in town and couldn't, really have a homestead in the traditional sense of having a homestead, I was still able to teach myself how to crochet. So, these are things that you can do, quilting, knitting, sewing, crocheting, all of these things are things that you can learn how to do right now where you're at. You don't have to be on a piece of land or have, resources available to you. You just have to find a book or a YouTube channel or an online course or a local, course, somebody that can teach you how to do these things if you don't know how to do them, or a book that can teach you how to do them, and, learn these different skills that used to be skills that everybody had. They were just kind of more like common knowledge. So another thing that you can do is what Tara and I were talking about. You can learn how to garden. Even if you have no land, none at all, you live in an apartment or you can't grow anything, in your yard because you're in a rental or you have really, really strict HOA restrictions, you can still learn how to garden. You can take a class online. You can look locally and see if you can learn how to grow your own food, like a master gardening course or something. Some people at farmers markets have, they're willing to teach you, even like you can find some resources, maybe even at your local greenhouse or your local Tractor Supply on the corkboard. I mean, there are people that are definitely more than willing to teach you. And of course, you can always grab a book. And if you don't have land, some options are vertical gardening, like in things like gutters. You could use containers, just like planters and things like that to grow something on your balcony if you're allowed to, or in your yard. If you're in a rental and they don't want you digging up the yard, you can still usually get them to let you grow in containers. Even 5-gallon buckets are usable as containers, or grow bags and things like that. There are lots and lots of options for container gardening. And another idea is you can grow with grow lights if you don't have any windows, and just, make a little flat of microgreens or some lettuce in a pot and put a light over it or over it. There are so many different grow lights available now compared to what they used to be. And if you don't have a lot of money, you can even use shop lights. Shop lights are effective as grow lights. So, and windowsills, of course, you could just grow a couple herbs, just, get your hands in the dirt and grow something. And another thing that you can do is learn some basic kitchen skills, like cutting up a chicken, cooking from scratch. I'm surprised at how many people don't know how to cut up a whole chicken. I think that everybody should know how to cut up a whole chicken, and learn to stretch that chicken out. And what I mean by that is, taking a whole bird and making it into several meals. So you can make it into your first meal, and then you can boil the bones and take all the trimmings and make it into some kind of soup and those types of things. Learn to kind of use your, I'm sorry, Bonnie just texted me. She's trying to get on here. But you can use that chicken and kind of stretch your food a little bit further. So if you learn some basic kitchen skills, like I actually know somebody that was telling me about a 19-year-old that didn't even know how to use a knife to cut up her own food. So these things are important. They're, just basic life skills. So, learn how to do them. You can get a book, learn how to bake bread, so you don't have to buy at the store if you eat grains. Just work in the kitchen and learn how to do those things. Another favorite of mine, is probably my most favorite, is learn how to butcher. You can do this by taking a course online or going to a local course. If you go to your local farmers markets, a lot of times you can find somebody who is more than willing to let you get, your hands dirty and help them butcher whatever it is they're selling at the farmers market, so you can get that experience and, know how to butcher your own meat so that you know how to do it in the future if there's no meat at the grocery store. And another thing that I taught myself how to do when we lived in the suburbs and couldn't really homestead in the traditional sense was I taught myself how to make soap. I grabbed a book, I watched a video online, and I bought some lye and some pastured tallow, and I made my own soap. It's not really that scary. I thought it was going to be because it's lye, but it was really actually pretty easy. It's just saponified oil and a little bit of lye, and it's something that anybody can do anywhere. You can get those items online, watch a video, and learn to make soap. Tara says that she needs to learn how to butcher them. Tara, it's actually really, really easy. You can make your life easier by having a plucker. I will tell you that if you're going to butcher a significant amount of chickens, it's so much easier with a plucker. We haven't, we did 2 groups of chickens without a plucker, and I actually invested part of our stimulus in the plucker so that we would have it, and we used it last year, and it's fantastic. But you really just need, a big pot of hot water, and you just, dunk them in after you've slaughtered them and get their feathers pulled off. And then you just do a couple little cuts and pull them out, pull out all the guts. So it's really easy. Kimber says that she makes her own laundry soap. Yes. But, beyond making your own laundry soap, you can learn how to make your own, body soap and stuff. I think Bonnie is almost ready. I see her. Is she there? She's coming. So yes, a good investment is.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine.
With my lovely quality camera, because my computer. Deep breath.
So we are talking about things people can, learn right where they're at, even if they don't have any land. I've pretty much gotten through all of them. So.
All right, I'll see you guys.
Bye. So this is the beauty of technology and you being in Florida and me being in Indiana.
I will tell you, the devil's working on me hard this week. That's all. That's the only explanation I have at this point. Is this has got to be Satan's doing, because I can't.
I still love you.
It worked great Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, I had other issues, but the camera piece worked great on Monday.
Trevor says hi. He's watching us.
Trevor, go back to work. Leave us alone. So
let's segue into Bonnie is finally here. I've already done the podcast introduction, so you can have fun editing whatever you want to.
I'm just going to let Tin figure that one out.
All right. So, all right, now that we are back online, so I have another blog post on, there are 150 skills listed on this blog post, and a lot of them are things that absolutely anyone could do. And like I said, you can always find online courses. You can find locals at your farmers market, places like that, where you can find people who are more than willing to let you help them because it's free for you to help them, and then they don't have to do all the work themselves. And you get to learn something. So, don't be afraid to reach out and find some of those local people that will hopefully let you get your hands dirty. I know I would.
Well, and that's one thing is I've met a lot of farmers and growers and breeders who love to share the information they know. I mean, yeah, there's the ones out there that are jerks, and they feel like everything they know is privileged information. And the problem is someday those people are going to die, and that information is going to die with them because they were too stubborn and arrogant to share it.
Right.
But the vast majority are not that way. What ends up holding people back is the beginners, the people who are new to this, just assume that the people who have the knowledge are arrogant jerks who don't want to share. And so they're afraid to even ask. And I realize a lot of us who choose this lifestyle are introverts. So I get that, we don't necessarily feel comfortable talking to strangers. But I also know that for me, and I call myself a closet introvert because yes, I have extroverted tendencies, that will completely wipe me out for the rest of the day. Like I will go home and take a nap after I record this podcast. But I had to train myself to be that way. Like I was very, very shy growing up. And I ended up being befriended by a cheerleader who like forced me to crack that shell. Not, you weren't a cheerleader, were you?
No,
Oh,
I can't believe a cheerleader befriended you. No.
Okay, so she's a weird anomaly. Hold on, I'm going the wrong direction on my camera. She's a cheerleader who is also a dairy farmer.
Oh.
So
Well,
yeah, like I said, a very strange anomaly. In fact, unfortunately for her dad, he was gifted with 3 daughters. I think they may have all become cheerleaders, but they were also, I mean, and I think they even did beauty pageants. I don't remember.
oh, wow.
You know, this is stretching into the memory bank. But like they were also active in 4-H and FFA and showed at the county fair and weren't afraid to get their hands dirty. And just, I mean, great girls to know. So yeah, I was befriended by Jocelyn. And so she kind of took me under her wing. And one year at FFA National Convention, she like forced me to go around and talk to people. But yeah, so that aside, when I hate small talk with a passion. But I will not shut up if you get me on a subject that I'm passionate about. It drives my children up the wall. Like, if they know that we're going somewhere where there's going to be chickens, horses, goats, or plants, or pigs, pretty much anything animal or plant related, they will preface the visit before we even get out of the car with, "Mommy, don't talk." Because they know we will never leave.
I am very,
yes, so
very introverted.
It is possible for you to go and talk to those people.
Yeah. But it's hard. It's hard because, like you said, you think as the outsider that, you know, we're all going to be arrogant but you know, the truth is a lot of us that have a little bit of knowledge, at least, are very introverted as well. So we're not going to reach out to you necessarily. You need to come to us, and we're not
right.
Jerks. And we will talk about our passions. And I mean, I love talking about homesteading and being able to, you know, share any knowledge that I have. And I know I'm not the only person like that. So, you know, you just kind of have to, you know, get out of your own shell, like me. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get out of my shell.
Oh, yeah. Because I will tell you, I mean, now the farming space and the farmer market space is a lot different from what I grew up with. So yes, there are some out there that are more outgoing and, you know, not like the farmers that I grew up with. I mean, I can think of one farmer in particular. I don't remember him saying a single word the entire time I was growing up. And his one defining trait was the Amish would send horses to him to be trained, to pull carts and things like that. And so he would hook them up to the sled, work them out into the middle of a cornfield, and then just sit there for hours because the draft horses needed to be trained to stand still patiently. But he wouldn't do anything. This was before cell phones. So it's not like he's sitting on a cell phone. He's not reading a book. If anything, he's just sitting there talking to the horses. And I don't even think he was doing that much. I think he was literally just sitting there for hours, just watching nature go by. And so, I mean, yeah, the people that have the experience, that have the knowledge, they're not exactly your outgoing, outspoken, talkative folks either.
Right. But you can you can find somebody to help you, you know, learn skills. Like I said, that blog post that's on the screen there is a great place to start. There are 150 skills listed. I took forever writing that blog post.
Yes,
so.
You did. Well, and also something else I should say is don't feel like you are not qualified to call yourself a homesteader until you've mastered all 150 of those skills.
Oh, no. I haven't mastered even half
this
of
is an
them.
idealist. This is, you look at everything and look at what sounds interesting to you.
Exactly.
And
yes.
like pick a couple of things to learn.
Right. Don't try to learn all the things. I was just trying to give you lots and lots of options so you can find something that, you're really, really interested in, that really lights you up, and, go learn that. So, exactly. Up next is how to be a good steward.
This is a big one for me, because this is probably one of my biggest motivators, is, and really kind of what got me into homesteading, was I really feel like it is, part of our commission as humans to care for God's creation and to be good stewards of the earth. And I realize there's a lot of people on this planet that think that that means different things. I still think that means eating the animals. I still think that means hunting. But like, if you don't eat meat because you don't agree with how animals are being raised commercially, then raise them yourself and do it differently. Do it the way you want it done. Or buy from someone who is doing it the way you want it done.
Right. Like, we're not able to raise a lot of our animals, ourselves, because we're limited with only an acre. But what we can raise ourselves, we absolutely do. And we try to do it, the way that we feel is a good way to do it. And then for everything else, I've sourced, people who are raising their animals the way that I would raise them if they were my animals. So, there are always options. And I definitely feel like, Bonnie, we are definitely called to, be good stewards and take care of the earth, because not only, even if you're not religious, not only is it, you're called to, but also, we're leaving this planet to our children and our children's children, and et cetera, et cetera. And if we aren't good stewards, then we're not teaching them to be good stewards. And then pretty soon there's no planet.
Right.
Or not one that we can live on.
Yeah. And I mean, and we see it so often with commercial growing practices, and how these large scale monoculture farms have just stripped the topsoil of all the nutrients. And it didn't, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't take that many years for that to happen.
No.
And so, I think that a big thing, like if you're getting into gardening, is learning how to compost and how to rebuild that soil, because the soil is a living organism, and we need to treat it as such. It needs to be fed, it needs to be cared for, just as much as the plants that we're growing on the soil, if not more so.
Right. And so some things that you can do, I've got a whole list down here. You can line dry your clothes. So you're not using that electricity or that fuel in order to dry your clothes. Bonnie has a post, and I went and grabbed it. I remembered.
Wow. Danielle thought about me. I feel so special.
She has a whole post on how you can install a clothesline with pulleys, right? Isn't that what it is? Yeah.
Because I'm lazy. And my dryer's right by my back door. And so all I have to do is load the clothes, the wet clothes into, or I'm sorry, my washer and dryer. Anyway, load the wet clothes into the laundry basket, walk out the back door. The head of the pool, like the first pulley, is right there outside my back door. So I just stand on the back steps and hang them, and then string them across the backyard so that, and it dries the clothes. And then when it's time to take them off, I stand at that same step and I pull them off and I stick them in the laundry basket, and I'll throw them in the dryer for like 5 minutes just to kind of like fluff them and because we live in an oak forest. So you get a lot of like pollen and stuff that can fall on the clothes. So the dryer will also help knock a lot of that off. But yeah, and I find it relaxing. Maybe it's just the fact that it's an excuse for me to like go outside and leave my kids inside and lock the door. But but it is kind of therapeutic for me to like stand there and hang the laundry. And
yeah, I actually I like it too. I like, it gets you outside in the sunshine. You're getting some vitamin D. we have just like an umbrella clothesline. So it just, like pops up. It's not as easy to do this time of year here because weather. But, even if you have some ridiculous rule from your HOA where you're not supposed to have a clothesline, and yes, that is a ridiculous rule, you can still drive inside. I mean,
Mhm.
you can put something up over because, we're all using automatic washing machines, or most of us are, and it's going to spin a lot of that water out anyways. So it's
Right.
not like, you're going to have sopping wet clothes when you pull them out of your washer. So you can take them and put them in your, hang a line up above your washer and dryer, or hang them in your bathroom, or over, heater vents, or get a drying rack. I mean, there's lots of different options. You can definitely still do it. And if you have a basement, then you're super lucky and you can still, dry your clothes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is my mom, my parents have a full basement, and so in the wintertime, she's got a wire that hangs like the length of the basement, and then she also has like a rack for hanging clothes. So a lot of the stuff that just gets hung up anyway on hangers is going to go on that rack. But then the other stuff that she just wants to hang dry, she can hang on that wire in the basement. And yeah,
Kimber
Kim,
says hang them in the bathtub. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I can actually see all the comments today. This is exciting.
Yay.
I don't know why it wasn't. It's there's always something, right? Anyway, um, yes, you can do the bathtub. I don't know if it's just my bathroom. I mean, granted, my bathrooms are very small, but we get a lot of humidity in the bathroom, and so it doesn't, like, the clothes don't dry real well in there. But
Try a fan, maybe. So they're got a little bit of airflow.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, the
yeah,
fan's
it's
going to take up less electricity than the dryer is. So
well, right, and there are, like, if you can't hang outside, um, there are a lot of options now for, like, wires or cords that attach on the bathroom wall that you can stretch across. I've even
right.
seen them in hotel rooms that I've stayed in. Is they have like a clothesline that's
Yeah,
already attached to the wall.
it's been a while, but yeah, Kimber says they live in Texas, so your excuse is not very good. No, she didn't say that. I did. Well, you have to realize, what is bathtub, like 4 or 5 foot long, so you've got, several feet of space, and you could probably even hang more than one line depending on how you're doing it. So definitely could be an option for just about
Yeah.
anyone anywhere. And up next, stop using plastic, especially one-use plastics. I loathe plastic. I try to avoid plastic whenever and wherever I can. It's it's a part of our lives, but that doesn't mean it has to be a part of every part of our lives.
And I will say
Kimber laughed at me.
I saw that. I would say any plastic that you can cut out is better than nothing. Like, just try to limit where you can. I'm really trying to get away from, like, saran wrap and the sandwich baggies and things like that. Because like you said, like the single-use plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to think of other things that we've kind of cut out. We have gone completely to either stainless steel or glass straws. And
Well, you can't find straws up here anymore.
Oh, well, there's that. I mean, I could still find them, but, and even for birthday parties, if I want to get straws for birthday parties, I get the paper straws. But have you seen those mason jar lids? Like the screw on the top. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
you can put the straw in.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
The stainless steel straws fit in those great. Most of our drinking glasses, because I'm cheap, are mason jars.
Well, that's not cheap. I talked about this earlier. See? So you can use all those 500 jars that you need, because you don't need 500 cups or coffee mugs, and you can use those 500 jars when they don't have food in them.
Well, I still have 500 coffee mugs, but actually, coffee mugs are also really good for portion control on ice cream. just saying. But what was? Oh, my kids have like we used to have a mix of mason jars and like regular glasses, and my kids have broken all of the regular glasses. But the mason jars are like a thicker glass, and they hold up a lot better to my children's abuse. So that's a big thing. But also, yeah, I started getting the lids that screw on because I still have little ones, and if I just give them an open glass, it's going to get spilled or splashed or something. And so I can put the lid on, stick that straw in there, and we're good to go.
Right. I actually have a blog post I put up on the screen. It is 30 ways that you can eliminate plastic from your lives. It has lots of suggestions for single-use plastics. I did suggest in there, you can ditch your Tupperware. I don't think you should ditch your Tupperware if you're still using it, but you can slowly phase it out and go to glass storage containers. Not only is it better for the environment, but it's also better for your health because lots of those plastic storage containers have BPA and other things in them that leach into your food, and none of us really want that. Of course,
I will also say with the glass, because you know how the plastic containers tend to get like foggy over time. My glass containers have stayed, nice and clear. And we are using more of the leftovers because we can actually see what's in the container and see that it's something we want to eat. Because, I hate to say it, we've had a few science experiments in the refrigerator where if I don't know what's in the Tupperware container, I'm afraid to lift the lid. So the glass containers have eliminated a lot of that for me. What's Cheryl? Cheryl says mason jars for drinking glasses, leftover food storage, as containers for homemade yogurt. Love canning jars. Yeah, I even have some of the half-gallon jars that I use when I'm milking goats. I use to store my milk in, and then dry storage in my cabinets because with Florida we get a lot of weevils and pantry moths. And so the way that I've managed to eliminate those, one, any dry goods that come from the store spend at least 3 days in the refrigerator. Although I have some things that just live in the freezer permanently, like dried beans and flour and stuff like that. But then I can transfer them to either a hard plastic container or a mason jar in the pantry. And if I do have like an infestation of pantry moths or weevils, they're not able to spread to those containers because they're sealed and they can't get into them.
Right. And if you're going to use plastic, we just bought several plastic food grade things to store, dried goods in. I actually got them so I could put lard in them because I just rendered a bunch of lard and I need somewhere to put it. But, make sure it's good, heavy duty plastic, not, this, and none of that single use stuff. I mean, you're going to save money in the long run, even though you have to invest in, like these reusable sandwich bags or beeswax wrap instead of plastic wrap. I mean, there are lots and lots of options that are much more sustainable and better for the environment and for your health because you don't have all that BPA and stuff in them.
Right.
And then I said,
yeah, because like food grade buckets are really good for storage, but it's a better quality plastic. And if you're talking about like storing, 5 gallons of rice, you're not going to find if you find a glass container that large, it's going to be really expensive. Right. So there are uses, but like I said, even if you can't totally eliminate plastic, focus on the things you can eliminate because something is better than nothing.
Right. And you can always, phase that stuff out. Like I said, the stuff that your Tupperware containers and stuff like that, as they become cloudy or unusable, or you throw them out because you left a science experiment in the refrigerator for too long or whatever it is, instead of going and buying more Tupperware, replace it with a nice, good quality glass container instead.
Yes.
And learn to reuse items. We talked a lot about different ways that you can use mason jars because they're definitely multi-purpose. They're not just used for canning. Canning and crafts. So take old t-shirts and cut them into rags. Just learn how you can, kind of reuse and repurpose items that you have laying around that you didn't declutter, like I suggested that you do at the beginning of this episode.
You still have things left that you haven't thrown away yet.
Yes. We all have things.
And you're going to keep using things, and you're going to keep creating things.
Right.
Or empty containers. So
I wanted to mention, Bonnie mentioned being one of the first things she talked about was learning to compost. Starting a compost pile is possible even in your kitchen. There are lots and lots of countertop composters. And as long as you keep that charcoal changed out, first off, compost should never really smell. But as long as you keep that charcoal changed out, you're not going to have some like weird, banana peel rotting odor in your kitchen.
Although I will say my fungus gnats found a way to get through that charcoal filter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And they were actually like breeding in the charcoal filter. That was lots of fun. So I know. I'm just killing the sunshine, aren't I? So there are sealed options. They're a lot more expensive. But what I will usually do is I use my compost bucket to collect things for a day or two, and then it goes out to my tumbler outside. And you can keep the tumbler like right by your back door, or on your porch or something like that. And it's still, I have not had an issue with the smell from my tumbler, as long as you have a good balance of the green and brown. Excuse me. But, even if you don't have to have like a big backyard, you don't need to have a giant compost pile. It can be something small and contained. I keep mine contained just for the fact that I have dogs that will go and dig into my compost pile and then come inside smelling like sunshine and roses.
Oh, yeah.
So
why do dogs do that? That's so...
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And okay, sidebar here. We had wood chips delivered, and apparently some animal just happened to get mixed in with the wood chips.
Oh.
And the wood chips have broken down and settled enough to where that animal has come to the surface. And all of my dogs have taken turns rolling in that animal. And no, we have not actually put forth the effort to go out and dig it out of the pile and dispose of it, because that would be logical. So all of my dogs have gotten baths this last week.
I don't have a post specific to composting. I don't know if you do.
I do, actually. It's called Composting 101.
Well, mine is vermicomposting, so using worms to help break down that compost a little bit quicker. Bonnie's going to go find her post on composting, but I do have this post on vermicomposting. You can get red worms online. Some people raise them locally. Some people use different kinds of worms, and it's effective, but it's a way to compost. Some people even have vermicompost bins underneath their kitchen sink. So you can compost from, an apartment or a rental or whatever. It's still possible. You can buy a small tumbler and put it on your balcony or your porch, or, whatever you need to do. There are definitely ways to build up compost regardless of where you live. Did you find it? And I'll
say I'm working on it. My stupid computer is being so slow. But yeah, I've seen some really creative things with the vermicomposting in terms of different types of containers, but also people selling their worms, selling their worm castings. And then I've also seen people like, and this is something going back to like the 90s when I was actively raising rabbits. It was a big thing for people to use their rabbit poo to raise their worms in. So they actually had like worm bins under their rabbit cages.
Oh, wow. That's actually a
And
good
then,
idea.
yeah. And so the worms were like breaking everything down because, you know, the rabbits are also dropping shavings and hay and feed and all that stuff. I kind of accidentally ended up raising black soldier fly larvae underneath my rabbit cages.
Oh, well.
But yeah, it's they end up you know, they raise them that way and then they turn around and sell the worms as fishing bait.
I'll move on. You
I'm
can.
gonna put.
You got it.
I'm putting the link.
Okay.
Oh, I guess it's okay. So it's notsomodern.com/howtocompost. And for those of you actually listening to the podcast and not watching this live stream, we will put these links in the show notes.
Right. And any links that I've mentioned, I haven't actually added to the feed on Facebook, but I will.
Okay. So do you want me to put it as a banner or we'll just add it to the comments later?
You can just add it to the comments. It added it because you commented it. So we're good. And I can add it in the group. Right. I'll add it later. Yeah. Okay. So growing a garden is another way you can, you know, not only steward the earth, but also learn to live a little more sustainably. Like I mentioned earlier, you can grow in containers, you can grow in a windowsill, you can use grow lamps. There are tons and tons of different grow lamps available. So even if you live in a basement apartment, you could still actually technically grow some food there. You can grow vertically with gutters and things like that. There's so many different options. Just about anybody can grow at least something.
Have you seen the Arrow gardens? Those little like countertop gardens? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about getting one or two just to have like lettuce and herbs growing in the garden. Growing in the kitchen.
Yeah. And that's something I don't know how, you know, cost effective they are, how they work, but I have seen them, and that's something that like literally anybody could probably put, you know, on their countertop somewhere.
I would have it as a fun toy that just happens to make food for me, but who cares if it's cost effective? No, I mean, for me, it is a convenience thing, because I will say that if I have to walk out to my garden to pick lettuce versus just cutting it in my kitchen, I'm probably much more likely to actually eat the lettuce if it's in my kitchen.
Well, yeah. But lettuce doesn't stay good long, so you have to.
No, that's why you keep it growing.
Right,
like,
right.
You can't you can't really harvest it and save it because it's going to be wilted and stuff in a couple of days.
Yeah, it's gross.
You got to keep the roots attached.
And purchase secondhand. A lot of people think that purchasing things secondhand means that, you know, you're buying, you know, bad quality, or you just don't have any money, or, you know, there's so much stigma around secondhand. But actually a lot of especially clothes and stuff are actually more quality made. We bought almost all of our cookware is cast iron. It was all bought secondhand. We have very, very little invested in it. And it's lasted for over 100 years, and it's very, very likely it will last at least 100 more. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with secondhand. You're not using those resources again. You're making use of the resources that have already been used up. So purchasing secondhand is definitely a way that you can be a better steward and live a little more sustainably.
Yes. Yeah, because honestly, if it survived the first home, then it's probably better quality than the stuff you're getting at a lot of the stores.
Right. And eat seasonally. We've definitely strayed away from this with grocery stores and global food supplies. A lot of people don't realize that even meat actually has a season. You know, we're not having cows don't technically calve, you know, every month. We don't usually set things up like that. We don't have chicken available, you know, year round. You can technically, but at the same time, you know, it's more of a seasonal thing. And especially when it comes to vegetables and things like that, when you're buying peppers and tomatoes in Indiana in the dead of winter, that stuff probably traveled farther than you travel on vacation for a year. So when you learn to eat seasonally and preserve some of those foods so you can eat some of those things out of season, it's definitely a more sustainable way to live. And like I mentioned, it's traveling fewer miles, so you're a better steward of the land.
Right. Yeah, it's going to have a lot less of a carbon footprint. But also, like, you have to think about the fact that these vegetables and fruits are being harvested underripe so that they can travel the thousands of miles they need to travel to get to your grocery store.
Right.
So you're going to, you know, the more that you can buy locally, the better it's going to taste. Like you said, the less of an impact it's going to have. Also, I know everyone loves to grow things from their grocery store, like, you know, save their seeds and regrow their lettuce and all that happy stuff that I have not had much luck with. But if you're actually wanting to try to grow those seeds, you're going to have much better luck with something that was produced locally. One, it's already bred for your local environment. So you have a lot of things that were grown like in Southern Florida, or I'm sorry, well, yes, there's a lot of stuff that's grown in Southern Florida, but Southern California, or for me, like in Ohio, or good grief, I need more coffee. My mouth is talking faster than my brain at this point. All right. So here in Florida, we get a lot of we get a lot of fruits that are coming from further north that require a certain number of chill hours to produce. So I cannot go and buy a Washington apple from the grocery store and expect to be able to get those seeds to produce apples in Florida. It's just not going to happen. Same thing with strawberries. Same thing with a lot of blueberries. Like, and this is also why I tell people, you know, if you live in Florida, don't go and buy the fruit trees from the big box stores unless the tag specifically says it's been produced for Florida, because otherwise we don't have enough chill hours. And even within Florida, we have a lot of variations to how many chill hours you get.
Right.
So, so the stuff that you're getting from the local farmer, you know, that variety grows in your local environment. And then also, because it's being picked ripe, those seeds have had more time to develop and ripen. And so they're going to be more likely to actually germinate for you if you're trying to grow them.
Well, and you get so much more, you know, flavor and different varieties and things like that. You're not going to buy a tomato that tastes like cardboard if you're buying it locally, you know, from a local producer versus if you buy it at the grocery store in the middle of December in Indiana, it's cardboard because those tomatoes have to be a certain type so that they can withstand shipping and ripen off the vine at a certain amount of time and all these different things while still keeping them fresh long enough for you to grab them off the grocery store shelf. So, you know,
although I will say the stuff that's being grown commercially, like especially the tomatoes that are being grown commercially, they have not been bred for flavor. They've been bred to have a uniform round shape, a nice color, you know, basically to look pretty on a grocery store shelf. They've not been bred to actually taste good. And I'm noticing this a lot with apples. We're getting like, we just bought a bag of Fuji apples that I'm going to end up feeding most of the bag to the horses because they have no flavor. They're mealy. They're not good. Yeah. And so the apples that I've gotten from farmers markets, even if they weren't, because we don't grow a lot of apples in Florida. So even if they weren't from Florida, they've still been such a better quality than the stuff I've gotten from the grocery store.
All right. We don't have that problem so much here because we live in a place where, you
that
know,
grows apples.
Most of our apples are fairly local. We get a lot from like Michigan and stuff like that. But, and we have an orchard not that far from us. So we can go, you know, get a bunch of apples in the fall and keep them, do things with them, can them up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what I do in Ohio is we had orchards that would grow multiple varieties.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could go, you could go to the orchard, you could have a taste test, decide which variety you liked. You can get a cider made just from that variety. There are things I miss about Ohio. Just
Like
not
apples.
just not the ice and the mud. Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah.
miss the food. I guess that's.
So you can find those foods at your local farmers markets, CSAs, farm stands, community gardens, that type of thing, so that you can, source your food locally and eat things a little more seasonally than, we're used to, because like I mentioned, we have the grocery store available. And so we think that, since there's a tomato on the shelf, that must mean that
It's
we
in
can eat.
season.
Right. I mean, but we all know that tomatoes do not grow in the middle of December. It was funny though. I got peppers from the store. It was a while ago.
You
And they
told me
were
about
grown
this.
in Canada.
Yeah,
In
from a hot house in Canada.
Yes. I'm like, and it was winter when I bought them. I'm like, wow, Canada, huh?
Yep.
Kimber said she makes apple butter when they have a bunch. Apple butter, apple sauce, apple pie filling. I mean, there's tons and tons of ways that you can can up apples so that you can keep them and eat them.
Apples are like the potatoes of the fruit industry.
Yeah.
We need a Samwise Gamgee meme. That's just all the different ways you can use apples.
Oh, so I think we're about ready to wrap up. So a lot of people wonder where to start, right? I've had lots and lots of people that say that they don't know where to start. I run a very large Facebook group. One of my questions is, what is your biggest struggle? And this is by far the most popular answer. They just don't know where to start. So where do you start? Well, you can start, regardless of where you are. There's no such thing as, it's impossible to do because of XYZ. I'm definitely living proof that you can homestead anywhere. We started on a third of an acre, had no clue what we were doing. And that third of an acre was mostly covered by a driveway, house, and 2 garages and shade trees. I had a very, very, probably smaller than my king size bed area to grow anything in that yard. But I learned how to can and made soap and learned how to bake bread and cook from scratch and, all those basic kitchen skills. And I just used it as a learning experience and a season of my life where I could learn how to do things. And then I was all excited because we got to move to the country again, which is where we had lived our entire marriage. And I was very, very disappointed because we have 1 single acre. So it's a lot to, somebody that only had a very small postage stamp lot, but at the same time, it's not much, especially when we used to live on 3 acres. And we're surrounded by 16 acres and woods on the other side. So I look at my what I think is a postage stamp, and it's very disappointing. But we're here.
And then you get into the comparison trap. And
right. And you can't
we have to teach people not to do.
Right, exactly. Like you see all these homesteaders online that have, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 acres or whatever. And, that's great. I wish that, we could all afford that and do that, but we can't. And I think, Bonnie, you have 5, right?
Yeah, we have 5. It's mostly woods and it's mostly pasture. Okay. Pasture and woods are not synonymous. It's mostly turnout space.
Okay. That sounds a little bit better. So, you can make do. A lot of our acre isn't usable. Our septic tank takes up, and our leach field takes up a significant part right in the middle of our backyard instead of off to the side, like every other property we've ever lived on in the country. I don't know why it's there. I guess that's where it perked. But, and then further on, we have an area that is, full of water part of the year. I mean, it's not standing water, but it's all soppy, muddy. You can't really do a whole lot with it. And then the front yard is pretty shaded because it's on the north side of the property. and we have trees across the road. So, we don't have a lot to work with, but we still do quite a bit on our itty bitty acre. And like I said, when we started all of this, it was almost 12 years ago. We've lived here for 6 years. We still have a very, very, very long ways to go. But I've tried to help people, get out of that comparison trap and learn how to homestead right where they are. And the last 2 years have definitely taught us that we cannot wait on someday, because, bare grocery store shelves is something that I never honestly thought that I would see in my lifetime. And every time I step foot in a grocery store, there are bare shelves, and it seems to get worse instead of better. So
not to mention the rising food costs.
Yes. Oh my. Yeah. I used to say, that you couldn't homestead if you thought that you were going to save money, but I don't really think that's true anymore. I mean,
yeah, grain is going up, but it's not going up like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not going up as fast as the food costs, I guess, is
right. And there are ways, that you can feed quite a few animals without having to rely on grain. Believe it or not. I mean, most of us, it's been ingrained in us that we have to, like raise chickens and rabbits and things like that with all this pelletized feed. But, our grandmas or great grandmas or whatever, they didn't raise chickens like that. So, it is possible to do it without all that stuff. And it's still cheaper, even if you do choose to feed grain, to raise your own now. Oddly, that seems so odd to say.
Unless you have to buy wood to build a coop, then you're out of luck.
Well, but you could, there are so many pallets and stuff available. Yeah. Exactly. You can repurpose.
Although pallets have become like a whole industry in Florida. You cannot find pallets anymore because so many people, because if you go to these industrial complexes, because I used to actually do property management in a warehouse park, and
this is news.
You didn't know this? Okay. This was, when I had a business degree and I was treated like a glorified secretary. Anyway, so you would have these trucks, and I mean, we're just talking like little Ford Rangers, come through and collect the pallets from behind all the warehouses every day. And they're leaving the park, and the pallets are stacked higher than the cab of the truck. And you're going, how is this even legal? And that's all these guys do day after day, is just drive around and collect pallets. And then they turn around and they either resell them, or, I mean, more than likely they're reselling them, because now that it's become such a big thing with like crafters and people that are like making furniture and whatnot.
Right.
They're selling them like $2, $3, $4 a piece.
And they got them for free. See, I guess that's the beauty of having a truck driver for a husband, because he can say, hey, I want those. And he just has to drive the truck, which costs like $4.30 a gallon now. But
yeah, like I did one day, I found a plumbing supply place that was giving away pallets, but they wanted you to take like a lot of pallets. Right. And so I took our landscape trailer over there, and it was an hour each way to just drive over there, because everything in Florida is spread out. And I get over there, I load up the trailer, and I still couldn't do a whole lot with all the pallets, even though I ended up with a lot of pallets, because none of them matched. So like you see all of these nice crafts or like projects where they're building a fence out of pallets, and it all looks nice and uniform and everything. Yeah, no. Not unless you are buying those pallets brand new from the exact, like the same producer every time.
We actually built our chicken coop almost completely out of repurposed wood that we got for free. Almost the entire thing is, and it's big. It's a huge 10 by 12 shed. It's not actually even a chicken coop. So, you can find places that have that stuff available, and not have to pay all that money for lumber. But sometimes
you just have to be creative.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get out of my shell. Bonnie's trying to stop me from getting out of my shell.
I will stop it. I will stop interrupting you.
Since I, have lots and lots of experience and have developed strategies and things like that over the last, well, really 12 years, but we'll go with 6 years since we've been on this property. I'm trying to get out of my shell and start teaching you guys in a little bit of a different format. So I am opening up a membership where you can learn zero overwhelm homesteading tips, tricks, and strategies. Like I said, I've been doing this for a while. It's really, really difficult for me as an introvert to get out of my shell and actually do this. So I am opening this membership.
I will be taking coffee donations for all of the times that Danielle has texted me to tell me that she's out of her mind.
I am out of my mind. I have 3 kids. I run a business. My husband is never home, and I run a homestead. So I am out of my mind.
But you're the perfect person to teach these ladies, because a lot of them are feeling like they don't have the support system to do it themselves because they have 3 kids and their husbands work all the time.
Right. So I'm here to, to root you on and be your partner in crime and help you, make your homestead a success. And hopefully, not so overwhelming. I say zero overwhelm, but I guess I really mean most days zero overwhelm, because, we all have those days and times in our lives when, it doesn't matter what you do or don't do, you are still incredibly, incredibly overwhelmed. So I am opening a monthly membership. We will have at least 1 topic a month. Some months, this month, we will actually have 2 topics. So strategies to get started and get rid of naysayers. And then, of course, the ever important starting seeds on yourself, and everything from actually getting the seed to planting the seed, direct sowing, hardening off your vegetables, and all of that fun stuff. I will have monthly live Q&A and training so that, we can get together. There's chat available, and you don't have to have social media to use it. And I'm really, really excited. So I would love to help you grow your homestead and, follow your homesteading dreams instead of, sitting here waiting on someday. And Trevor said thanks.
I wanted to ask if you knew Trevor was still watching, but
I did not know Trevor was still watching. Why aren't you
not
working?
Interrupting.
So you can go to learn.therusticelk.com to learn more. It is called Homesteading Simplified. We will officially start on March 14th, and I'd love to have you in there.
And if you're listening to the podcast, I will put the link in the show notes.
And I will add the link to all of these different things.
Trevor is still watching.
And he's still working. I think he means he's working. You must just be listening.
Oh, that's possible.
All right.
On a hands-free device, because
oh yes,
he's driving.
Yes.
You told him to listen in, so therefore he's being a dutiful
I
husband.
told him he could listen in. I did not tell him he had to listen in. That was all him.
That's usually how my husband would interpret it too. She suggested it, so therefore I better listen or else. Okay, so I think that's it for today.
Sounds good.
I still feel like I missed a giant chunk because
I was like 30 minutes into it, and you're like, "Hi."
I don't know. I don't know. It's been a week. I'm gonna run errands and then go home and drink wine.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll do the podcast outro now. And if for those of you who did do the challenge with Danielle, I certainly hope that you enjoyed it. And I'm sure that you learned lots of useful information. So I think that this membership is definitely going to be exciting because you'll get some one-on-one interaction, and just being able to really get your questions addressed during the Q&A session. So I think that'll be great. All right. Well, if you guys have not already, please make sure that you subscribe to the Grounded in Simplicity podcast, where we publish episodes every Tuesday, and you can hear us banter back and forth and talk nonsense. Tell our stories. All right. Until next time, we'll catch you later.